Turns out there's not just cholesterol that you have to worry about, there's also this new cholesterol called TMAO. And we're going to talk about that today because research is kind of uncovering that this TMAO is really important in the way cholesterol is metabolized in your body, as well as, other precursors to heart disease, to cancer, to all sorts of bad stuff. And so we want to cover that today so that you can maybe start building a lifestyle that avoids those things and factors in this new information. Welcome to the Lifestyle-Based Healing Podcast. This is myself, Dylan, and my co-host and mom, Robin. We've been running a holistic health practice for 4 years now. We've helped hundreds of people deal with cholesterol issues, get off their medication even when they're on the highest doses and nothing was stopping that cholesterol from coming down. And today we're going to help you move a step in that direction too. So Mom, how did this idea or topic come to mind?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I was putting together a very comprehensive guidebook for our clients and a workshop about lowering the bad cholesterol, LDL cholesterol. And I had just finished putting the final touches on it. And I see something pop up on social media about the new cholesterol. And I'm like, what? I thought I knew everything about cholesterol. And so, of course, it caught my attention. And come to find out, it was just a new kind of handle that they're putting on TMAO. And so I was like, oh, that's old news. But it may be new for a lot of people. And that's why I thought this would be a really great podcast because the ramifications are very similar to cholesterol. So it's not actually a cholesterol. We still just to have the normal cholesterols that we need to worry about and the triglycerides, the lipids, that sort of thing. But it's being labeled as the new cholesterol because of the symptoms and the outcomes of it. Okay,
So let me give you guys a brief understanding of what TMAO is, because it's kind of alphabet soup. What it actually stands for is trimethylamine oxide, and it's actually a compound produced in the body as a result of what we eat, and then an interaction with gut bacteria. So when we eat things that have choline in it, when it has carnitine or lecithin, if we eat food with any of those things in it, then our gut bacteria can, if you have the right ones, will metabolize that and create byproducts that then the liver uses to metabolize into TMAO. So now that we know a little bit about TMAO, Mom, can you explain why we care?
yeah, because it's just it impacts our health. And it impacts our health in a broad sense is cardiovascular disease. But when you dial that down into what does that actually mean for you, it's heart failure, it's stroke, it's hardening of the arteries, which if those are hardening, you probably have higher blood pressure. So it's like, the higher risk of chronic kidney disease and certain cancers like prostate cancer. And so it really promotes inflammation as well. And there's some thought that it even increases our platelet reactivity and blood clotting issues. So, this TMAO is just not a good guy. And so we don't really want it in our blood. Yeah, and so it's just one of those other things you want to be aware of if you're trying to get your health back in order.
So one of the things that is interesting about TMAO is it's ultimately the result of the food intake, right? But also the way your gut bacteria metabolize. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works? Because there's some interesting studies there.
Yeah, there is, and gut health is so huge, right? The production of TMAO is like you said, you eat the foods that have those components in it, and then there's certain gut bacteria that have an enzyme that actually break down those compounds, the choline, the carnitine, those things that you mentioned, and that they could create TMA, and you said it goes into the liver, right? And so those certain bacteria that are driving that in your gut. And so you have to think, it's like, well, what if I didn't have those bacterias and what would that do? And it's interesting because they did a study where they took vegans who don't eat any meat, so they suspected they didn't have those same gut bacteria. They would feed them those a food that has those components in it, and they would not have the TMA and TMAO in their bloodstreams. And so it's one of those enzymes, those bacteria build up over time. And so, and so when they've done antibiotic studies, the same thing that it kills everything. And the same thing, no results. But as those bacteria start to build up, then they start having those TMAO numbers go. So your gut is a big component of that. And so it's really important to think about gut health in that perspective.
Yeah, I think that's so important. What about like why haven't we really heard so much about TMAO or why is it not talked about that much?
Yeah, there's a little bit of ongoing debate in the research world about, is it really fully understood? This is so true of nutrition in general, and is it really causation? So this whole idea of causations versus correlations becomes sort of this debate, um, and then a lot of the studies are observational and which aren't really a high level type of study. And so, but what they know is that they people that have these markers of TMAO in their blood typically have more cardiovascular stroke sort of issues. The issue is by using it as a marker is if you fast before your blood is drawn to have it tested, the TMAO clears out. And so is it an effective marker or not to see is that, a risk factor? And so I just think they're learning more about it. And like I said, it's been around since like 2011 when the first study started coming out, but it's still not fully understood. And it's not really understood how to prevent it aside from not eating the dietary choices, right? The foods that have it in it.
Yeah, so what should we do to lower our TMAO? Like, should we just like what sort of foods does it usually appear in? Which ones should we be avoiding? Is there anything that
Yeah.
I can do for my gut to change that metabolism, pattern? How should we approach this now?
Yeah, and so if you think about those components we talked about, the carnitine, the choline, the lecithin, those are found in animal products. So, in the meats, the dairy products, in eggs, those are the sort of things that have those components in it. And even certain fish actually have the whole component. They have the TMA and the O in it all together. And so, you want to be certain that and that goes directly into your bloodstream. It bypasses your gut altogether. So, avoid those foods. The beef, the pork, the lamb, the meat products, and then the dairy products, the yogurt, the cream cheese, the butter, the milk. Uh, Even like some energy drinks have carnitine in them and some dietary supplements. So really understand those foods that you're eating and what's coming with them and how it's impacting your health. That's a really important uh, point to take away.
Yeah, and some people might note that, if they read their labels or they're just especially knowledgeable, like, well, a lot of plants have small amounts of carnitine in them. There's some foods that plant foods have these sorts of components in them. So why is that different?
Yeah, I think it's different because if there's smaller amounts and your body's able to get rid of them. And so it's these large amounts that we have to really worry about. So if you think about how much of those other products I spoke about, the animal products that people consume, you can see how their TMAO levels get to be out of hand. And in addition to having high cholesterol levels, because the same foods are causing high cholesterol. And so then it's a double whammy. And so I think anytime you can reduce those foods in your diets at the same time, it's not always about just eliminating and reducing. I want you to be adding in some of these fiber foods that are going to really improve your gut health and change that microbiome and those bacteria that are in there to help you excrete some, not only your LDL cholesterol, but some of these other things that we don't want.
Yeah, I think that last point's definitely important. The double whammy effect, right? It's like a
Hmm.
double negative. In this case, it does not make a positive.
Yeah.
It just compounds having both the cholesterol and, on board plus the things that lead to TMAO. I think, of course, having a lot of fiber. making that proper proportion, right? Because you want to have the good bacteria outcompete the bad ones. And the more fiber you have on board, like the proportions are way different when you eat the same amount of plant food versus, the comparable amount of these other foods, is because there's a lot trace amount of the components and you're getting a lot more fiber on board, which is allowing those TMAO producing bacteria to kind of die out a lot more.
Yeah, I think what's fascinating about gut bacteria is they have food preferences too. So different ones like different things, right? So that's why when you eat a lot of diverse fiber foods, you build up this diversity in your gut. And we know gut diversity of microbes is where the healthiest guts are, the healthiest microbiome. And so, like you said, you just maybe diminish the ones that are creating those precursors that cause TMAO, and it keeps it in a better balance for sure.
Yeah. So if people want to learn more, there's a course that you made, especially for those that are concerned about their heart health, concerned about their LDL levels, and potentially their TMAO and all the gut bacteria that play into that. You put together a pretty comprehensive course on this, right?
I did. Yeah, it was really there's some new research coming out about LDL cholesterol and certain foods that actually can help your body eliminate it from your gut and from your body. And so we dive into what that looks like and how much and how to do it and all of that. So it's a really great course for people to take, and we're getting really great reviews back to that because there's nothing better than having a client come back and say, "Hey, I got off a statin and my numbers are in a good range now," and that's just the best.
Yeah, and the course talks about, the three big drivers of cholesterol, those kind of root causes. It talks about medications, it talks about supplements, and of course, it talks about, dietary changes you can actually make to really drop that number and have it really plummet. And so that you can eventually get off medication is usually the goal. Of course, we can't make any guarantees, but we've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
Cool. And you can find that in the link in the description. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content like it, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Bye, everyone.